Hey, thanks for tuning in. My name's Chris Pearson. I'm a state senator from Chittenden County, and I'm the co-chair of the Vermont Legislative Climate Solutions Caucus. We are going all around the state this fall, talking to Vermonters, hearing from them, and trying to explain what we are attempting to do in the upcoming legislative session, and hearing from people their concerns around climate and their ideas. So I'm really grateful to have the chance to give you a little presentation here by video, and I hope that you'll engage with us. Let me just back up and say I was one of the co-founders of the Climate Caucus back maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago in the legislature because I've been very worried about these issues for a long time. And I was looking around, I served in the House of Representatives. There was 150 members. Clear majority of us believed in the climate crisis, and we weren't really doing much about it. And so I and others, Representative then Margaret Cheney, pulled a group of people together, and we've been building awareness, and now we're at a point where we're hoping we can really push an agenda. So immediately after the last session adjourned in late May, the Climate Solutions Caucus held a retreat, a day-long discussion of at least 40 legislators from around the state came together, and we set ourselves on a path to come up with realistic issues that we could pass quickly in 4 months, when we worked for 4 months, that would also be meaningful and would really begin us, continue our work, but really take significant strides at tackling the climate emergency. We set ourselves up some working groups to come up with policies, to build consensus around policies for our own group. And I should tell you, the Climate Solutions Caucus is now over 80 members strong. Progressives, Democrats, independents, House members, Senate members, people from all over the state. Occasionally some Republicans join us, and we're always eager to have more voices. We started looking at transportation, building efficiency, green jobs, and the green economy and energy. And so legislators worked informally over the summer and into the fall and came up with a whole host of ideas. Sarah Copeland-Hansis, a representative who's the co-chair of the Climate Solutions Caucus with me, she and I condensed this, and we came up with 4 policy areas that we are pushing really hard and getting ready to push in Montpelier starting in January. The climate is in a state of emergency. Vermonters know that. People around the world know that. Our young people are demanding action. I was part of the biggest rally I've ever seen in Burlington a few weeks ago in the climate strike. Legislatures have to answer this emergency. This is our attempt to do that. Again, we're trying to be realistic what we can accomplish, but also have significant strides forward. So we came up with 4 areas to focus on: transportation, building efficiency, energy, and accountability. And I'm just going to take you one by one through that package, and I hope to hear comments. And by the way, we're having these kinds of discussions all around the state, and I'm sure there'll be a link below this video to where you can find out how to get engaged. So transportation. Transportation is the biggest single contributor to greenhouse gases in Vermont. It is the fastest growing segment of our pollution, and it's in some ways been the hardest to get our handle on because we're a rural state and we got to drive to work more often than not. The good news is Governor Scott and governors from 11 other states, from Maine over to New York, down into DC and Virginia, including Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, a significant chunk of the country, is working on something called the Transportation Climate Initiative, sometimes called TCI. TCI is a group of 12 states coming together to recognize the crisis around transportation and the challenges it creates for the climate. The idea is that this December, those 12 governors will present some framework for TCI, and the legislature in Vermont and those of us in the Climate Solutions Caucus and beyond want to push forward so that we enact TCI, so that Vermont is part of it, and also look at what it means. So let me just back up and say, most of those states I'm talking about, I think it was 9 states, participated for the last 10, 11 years in something called RGGI, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. RGGI was brought to Vermont by Governor Jim Douglas at the time, and it is a cooperation between northeastern states around reducing emissions from energy production. RGGI has put money into Vermont because our energy production has been relatively green. That has kept our Vermont electric rates low, and it has shut down coal plants and oil burning electric production in states like Massachusetts, New Jersey, and so forth. It has been very successful. We're trying to build on the RGGI model to include transportation, and that's what TCI does. The details of it aren't clear, but basically fuel distributors for transportation fuels, so gasoline, diesel, would pay a charge to generate revenue for states like Vermont to then have the ability to invest in clean transportation alternatives. And it is sometimes called a cap and invest system. Again, the details have yet to be laid out, but what we're looking at is an enormous possibility for not only Vermont, but the whole region to get a handle on the transportation emissions, and also for us to have revenue so that we can make necessary investments in electrification of our transportation system, in things like park and rides, in strategies to get kids to school, in cleaner vehicles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we want to do, assuming that we can move forward into the agreement, is make sure that we're not having this money go to backfill gaps in our transportation budget. We don't need this money to build bridges and fix roads. That's got to be a separate thing. We need this money to invest in electric vehicle incentives, in charging infrastructure, in public transit infrastructure, and so forth. So the Transportation Climate Initiative, TCI, is a top priority for us, and is a very, very important structure for not only Vermont, but the whole region to get a grip on our transportation emissions. TCI holds a lot of promise. No doubt, because it's a broad coalition of states, it will not be as strong as we need it to be, but it is an important framework for us to move forward. The second area is building efficiency. This is the second most prominent emission source here in Vermont. Our old leaky buildings send heat up into the air and are a second most prevalent source of emissions in the state. We have been investing, and we need to continue investing in weatherizing our buildings. That's blowing in insulation. Those create jobs that you can't export. It helps Vermonters save money on their heat. We're going to continue to do that work, and we need to find more money to do it faster. One of the things that we uncovered in our process this summer among the Climate Solutions Caucus is there is a suite of thousands of professionals in Vermont who intersect with us in our homes every day. And we need them to be part of the climate struggle. So I'm thinking of realtors, real estate appraisers, HVAC workers, plumbers, all sorts of people, the electricians that help us make decisions in our house, in most cases, our single biggest investment. They are all licensed by the state because they are professionals. And every 2 years, just like a nurse or a teacher or a doctor, they come to the state to get relicensed. And we want to use that moment to make sure these folks are educated and aware of programs that the state has, aware of financial incentives to maybe pick a different kind of furnace or switch from a natural gas furnace to an alternative, maybe electrifying, maybe advanced wood heat. Make sure that these guys and women are absolutely educated and part of our suite of folks helping us make sustainable choices. So this seems like a small thing, but remember, these are thousands of people intersecting with Vermonters every day. And we need them to be on our side, aware of what we're doing, and helping Vermonters make different choices, and certainly helping Vermonters take advantage of programs that the state and our utilities and others have set up that are helping Vermonters save money as they make these transitions. I think this is sort of a very important seemingly small piece, but has a huge impact because of the thousands of people that are talking to Vermonters. Another example along these lines, car salespeople. Now, they're not licensed by the state, but when we walk onto a lot to figure out what car to buy, we need those professionals to point to the electric vehicle that maybe is at the back of the lot and help us understand, oh, Green Mountain Power will give you X incentive. The state will give you this tax break. Whatever the program is, we need these professionals on board and helping Vermonters make this choice, at least helping Vermonters be aware of the opportunity. So that is, in a broad way, how we're thinking of building efficiencies and all the professionals that come in and out of our homes and help us make choices. By the way, we have codes in Vermont law for building codes. We have never really enforced them in a robust way. We also need to look at that down the road because we need to insist that new buildings are built to a standard that is comprehensively understanding our energy use and the way our homes and buildings contribute to greenhouse gases. Energy. You can't talk about climate change without talking about energy, renewable energy specifically, and efficiency. I hope everybody is aware of Efficiency Vermont. This is a groundbreaking policy that the state created going back 20 years. We were the first state to create an efficiency utility. They have saved us millions and millions of dollars and reduced our electric use, in fact, in Vermont in that time. They are been an excellent investment for Vermonters. And in fact, there's a whole suite of folks at Efficiency Vermont whose entire job is to travel around the country and the world and help other people set up a similar utility. So we can be enormously proud of Efficiency Vermont. But we have regulated Efficiency Vermont to only work in the electric sphere. So they go into businesses and help them analyze their electric consumption and figure out smarter strategies to use less energy and save money. And that's been wonderfully successful. But if you were investing efficiency dollars today, you wouldn't look at electricity necessarily. You would very definitely look at fossil fuels. So we set up last year a process to help Efficiency Vermont transition out of only the narrow scope of electricity and into all fuels efficiency. We want to amplify that work. We want to speed it up. And so we have an effort to do just that and figure out how we can get that expertise helping Vermonters of all kinds, but particularly our business constituents, save fossil fuels, transition away from fossil fuels into electrification, and on and on and on. I'm very excited about this. This is an important infrastructure, and it's building on expertise we have in state that have already been proven to work. So the all fuels efficiency work is very important. Similarly, we got to talk about renewable energy. In the last 10, 15 years, we have seen an explosion of solar. We have trumpeted the jobs that clean energy have created here in Vermont. But we need to recognize that a lot of what we did at the outset was a bit of, it was kind of a hope. We'd say, well, let's try this and see if anybody builds solar. Let's try this net metering structure and see if people put solar panels on their home. I think we can widely recognize it's been very successful. We exceeded expectations in terms of energy that's been built and solar capacity that we have in the state. So it's appropriate to tweak what we've done. In some cases, we saw an explosion of solar and the Public Utility Commission clamped down and said, oh, you got to slow down. We've also learned that it's vital not just to build renewable energy generation, but to site it appropriately. You really want to have those solar panels near the off-takers. You don't want this energy to travel far across the state before it gets absorbed and used. So we're looking at tweaks to our current system. Sometimes this is called Tier 2. Our Tier 2 requirement says today that utilities have to get 10% of their energy from in-state renewables by 2030. 10% is awfully modest. We want to increase that, potentially go as high as 20% in-state. And we also want to push them. Right now, they're required to have 75% renewable generation on the grid. We want to push that up to 100%. There's a timeline for that, but the bottom line is we want to build on what's working. We want to create solar and energy jobs here in Vermont, and we want to have our grid be more resilient, more locally controlled, and not exporting those dollars to Hydro-Quebec or offshore wind in Massachusetts, although those are part of our solution. Similarly, storage is coming online, right? So battery prices are coming way down. This is a big resiliency effort. This is small grids. The future is thought to be sort of distributed energy, and we want to get on board with storage here in the state. That will, by the way, potentially save us money, because whichever state can go first and aggressively with storage capacity will likely save money, because other states will be forced to pay in. That's a complicated thing, but it has to do with the regional grid through ISO New England. So those are the energy pieces we're looking at. We're looking at enhancing our efficiency utility so that it can address fossil fuels, looking at increasing our renewable energy requirements for our utilities, both overall, 100% renewable, and in-state generation, and looking to bring storage online in a very meaningful way. Lastly, our agenda. And again, we're trying to figure out what we can accomplish in the 4 months that we are in session that will be meaningful, but also that isn't, battle royale. The last piece of that is accountability. And I think this resonates with Vermonters. I know it resonates with me because legislators are quick to take credit for things when in fact we maybe don't live up to the promise, et cetera, et cetera. So by accountability, I'm talking about the promise of putting the Paris greenhouse gas reduction goals into law. That's a short-term goal that we need to honor the promise. When President Trump signaled he would pull out of the Paris Agreement several years ago, Governor Scott said right away, Vermont will do our part. Legislators passed a resolution, said, Vermont will do our part. What we're saying in the Greenhouse Global Warming Solutions Act is we're promising to do our part. We're going to put this into law. Now, the accountability comes in because we're going to allow a provision where Vermonters can sue the state if we're falling down. We're going to deliver a promise, and we're going to set up a structure that says we mean this promise, and if we fall down, citizens have recourse. The short-term promise will be the Paris targets, I believe. The long-term targets, we will. It is my hope, and we will push to join New York and Maine and say by 2050, Vermont will be net zero for our energy consumption by 2050. Again, this is a promise with accountability behind it because there is a mechanism for Vermonters to step up if the legislature is falling down on its obligation. So that's our agenda. That's not the only agenda. It's not enough because this is such a clear emergency, but it is something we believe we can accomplish that will be meaningful, will have immediate impact, and will have long-term impact as we continue this work. And I just want to say to the Vermonters who are saying to us, you got to do more, you got to go faster, I agree. But the legislature is set up so that we work 4.5 months every year. And we have enormous challenges, whether it's healthcare, whether it's our education system, our higher education, student debt, agricultural economy, cleaning up Lake Champlain, on and on and on. We have enormous challenges, and we do our best to address these every year. And on top of that, of course, we have the climate emergency. What the Climate Solutions Caucus is trying to do is lay down a straightforward agenda and says this is the beginning of meeting the demand that Vermonters are rightly putting on lawmakers to address the climate emergency. It's not the end all and be all, but it is hopefully a meaningful first step, or frankly, adding to the work we have done. Montpelier has not been asleep to this crisis, but I think people rightly feel that we have not answered the urgency that the crisis demands. So transportation, building efficiency, renewable energy and efficiency, and accountability. That's what we're pushing starting January. Grassroots activists who are engaged in this, I want you to hear directly from me, we need you. We need your voice in this. We need you demanding us to do more. We need you pushing on our friends and ourselves and the governor to enact these policies and more. We need you to push on us to come up with funding, to push weatherization further, et cetera, et cetera. This will not work without a robust grassroots pressure on Montpelier. And so I invite you to be part of our discussion, to be part of the solutions, send us new ideas, send us tweaks to the ideas I've just outlined. Try to be part of the conversation. I know everybody's busy. We've got 1,000 priorities and people are busy and people are struggling in our economy. But a single email to your legislator has a dramatic impact. And I can't overstate this enough. I serve the Chittenden County Senate. I have 130,000 constituents. Okay, that can be a little overwhelming when I get emails to my phone. And so I can't always respond, but I see them. We don't have staff to deal with this stuff for us. We see them personally. So when a legislator in the House receives 5 emails from people writing genuine emails, I hope you'll address the climate crisis. When young people come to the State House or call us up or email us, we hear these and they have more impact than you would imagine. We need the grassroots engaged. I hope this is an exciting agenda. I want you to hear very clearly that I know it's not enough, but I hope it's a meaningful step forward, and I hope you'll join us in fighting for Vermont to take a lead in addressing the climate emergency and doing our share, not only for Vermont, but to demonstrate to other states who are looking for models of what to do. We're all improvising. No entity anywhere in the world has figured out how to address the climate crisis. There are snippets that we can model and grab from, but there is ample room for leadership, and I think Vermont can fill that role. We haven't historically, and it's time for us to step up again. Thanks.